Hello and welcome to episode number 89 of Week in Review. On today's show, we're talking about some stuff that I missed while I was out on vacation in Brittany Runs a Marathon, Untitled Goose Game, Bus Simulator for the Console Edition, and we'll look forward to this week's new releases. We will start with Brittany Runs a Marathon, which is a great, heartfelt, humorous, and genuinely inspiring movie about Brittany, the lead character, running a marathon. Brittany is played by Jillian Bell, who mostly has had supporting roles up until this point, and this will probably be her breakout thing. And I really like that because I've always liked her. I recognize her mostly from Workaholics, and I've always enjoyed her. But to see her front and center is really cool. I hope this is her breakout role because she's so great in it. She makes Brittany so relatable and lovable and understandable. We share in Brittany's success, but we understand why she makes some of the decisions she does that maybe put her at a step back. We're frustrated with her, but we get it. And I think that's a credit to Jillian Bell for making her such a well-rounded and engaging three-dimensional character. And that's the most impressive thing about this movie is it uses the idea of hey, a person wants to start to lose weight, they come up with this goal that they want to run the New York City Marathon, and we get to see that domino effect further out in people's lives where she starts running, she meets new people, she gets better friends, better people in her life. As she loses the weight, she becomes more confident, she's more assertive, and she'll stand up for herself. She also ends up finding a better job that suits her a little bit more, and it's this cool domino effect to watch in a movie that so easily could slide to the side of hey, if you lose weight, your life will magically be better, and that would ring so much more hollow. So it's so nice to see this movie take such a small concept and really run with it and explore a bunch of different areas that make it a much more well-rounded and fully fleshed out movie. I really only have two very minor criticisms about this movie. There's a scene in the later third of the movie, I think it's the beginning of the third act, that feels a little bit out of place. I understand why it's there, and I understand its point as far as the bigger plot structure of the movie, but I didn't understand why her frustration came out at the character it came out at, and why she would have yelled at this person for the reasons that she yelled at her for, if that makes sense. Basically, at a birthday party, she starts yelling at a woman who's a little bit bigger about body mass index and how she should be losing weight to make her life better. But it's weird because I don't understand why she would yell at her. It's weird because as you watch her hit her weight goals, I never felt like she thought she was better than anyone else. I thought she was just genuinely proud of herself. And so it doesn't really read from a self-inflated ego sort of perspective, but there are also some other plot elements that happen that don't really make sense of why she would yell at her about that for her own personal shortcomings. It's a really weird scene. It makes sense in the plot of the movie. You have to get to a point where someone calls her out and is you think everyone's going to be super shitty to you, but there's people who have been calling you who've been trying to get a hold of you, and I understand that you're annoyed because you have suffered a setback that doesn't allow you to do something, but it's not why are you taking it out on her? I just think there's a better way to get around that. I don't think you have to have her yell at that character. I think you can have a character come in and be hey, why are you ignoring all these phone calls? And kind of not bait her into yelling, but kind of tell her you know that they're calling you because they care about you. You know that just because you had shitty friends before doesn't mean you have shitty friends now. It's a really weird scene, and it definitely stuck out during the movie. The other aspect of the movie it doesn't go deep enough on is the social media aspect. Social media is pretty consistent throughout the film, and it doesn't make any revolutionary statements about it. It doesn't show how daunting it can be to try and improve yourself when you see all of these people who live perfect lives, at least through the computer screen, and how difficult it is to be okay, well, I'm just going to work on myself and try and improve that. And the observations it makes aren't all that revolutionary. Perfect person online has messy real life. That's not all that that's very obvious. They probably could have done a little bit more with the social media aspect, but they choose to focus on some other areas of her life, specifically her love life, and that's fine. It just never really hit in the way that some of the other points it makes do, and I thought that part was the most shallow and the least impactful portion of the movie. But overall, I thought the movie was fantastic. I really like Jillian Bell. The supporting cast is really good in their roles, even when you're man, this character is a total jerk and I can't stand them. They're giving a good performance. Can't be mad about that. You're a jerk, and I know why you're a jerk, because you're a jerk, and I don't like that you're a jerk, but you're doing a good job. It's a wonderful surprise that I didn't expect for it to go as deep as it did, and even if it has a small deficiency here or there, it doesn't really impact the movie all that much. It's really great. It's a good fun movie. I really liked Brittany as a character, and I thought Jillian Bell was great. Supporting cast is really good, and it was overall, it was a great experience. Switch over to the game side and talk about Untitled Goose Game first. I love this game so much. This game has such a wonderfully, simple premise. You're basically just a mean goose ruining the days of local townsfolk as you're trying to complete your main objective. You solve light puzzles throughout the game. The puzzles are super well done. All the information you need is right there in the area. You just have to put the pieces together to get them done. The areas ramp up in difficulty really nicely. The first area has one person that will try and shoo you away. The second area is a little day market that has two people that will shoo you away. And the puzzles themselves, the list of tasks that you have to complete, those get a little bit more complicated, but nothing ever felt like too demanding. There was one that I had trouble with towards the end of the game because you need to get a specific character to a specific spot, and I just wasn't seeing the solution. The only trouble I had with this game is sometimes characters will shoo you away and it'll pull the camera away. So when I was looking for a specific answer, I wasn't seeing it because somebody moved something that I just didn't notice that you should be able to see, but because somebody was trying to get me out of the way, and you flutter off, you spread your wings, you're like, oh, I'm just a goose, I have this harmonica, it's great. It made it a little bit more difficult, but it wasn't the game's fault necessarily. I didn't put myself in the best position. This is the incredibly rare type of game that I went through when I played blind and then went back and have watched several other people play it, because it's just so funny and interesting to watch. Just watching people be a goose and honking at people, and how do you complete these objectives, because you don't have to complete every objective to move on to the next area. You only have to complete, I think it's 6 out of the 7, something like that. You can leave one of them blank, and there's one in every area that's extra tricky. It's a little more obtuse, and it's fun to go back and watch people complete that and go, oh, it was right there, I just wasn't seeing it. And it kind of goes back to the way the puzzles are designed, in that everything's there in front of you, you just need to put the pieces together. I really love this game, and I think you should totally play it. There isn't a ton to talk about because it is a very short game. It's only about 2 to 2.5 hours long. After you do complete your first playthrough of the game, it unlocks another level of things for you to do that are a little bit trickier and require you to take certain objects from one area, so area number 2 into area number 3 to do a certain objective, and that's really cool. I didn't go back and complete any of those additional objectives, although I have been tempted to. I have watched a bunch of people do them, and some of them are actually quite elaborate, but it's still very fun. I highly recommend that you check this game out if you have a Nintendo Switch. The other game on this week's show is Bus Simulator, which finally got its release on console. I would have loved to have put this in my anticipated games for the quarter, but it didn't get a release date until a couple of weeks afterward, which really sucked, because I would have been gung-ho, 10 out of 10, super excited for it. And I really love this game despite its technical deficiencies. It is a quite literal dream come true for me. I've always loved buses, and I love looking at bus system maps and stuff like that. It was a main goal that I had in both Green Bay and Chicago, was to get bus maps, and this game allows you to do that. The concept of the game is very simple. You own a bus company and you're trying to get the city to invest in public transit. So what you need to do is create routes that help people want more public transit in the area, and basically you get a collection of objectives that you need to complete, and it'll unlock new areas, which will unlock new stops, which can give you longer routes, which can give you more routes. And when you drive routes, you make money, and when you make money, you can buy more buses, and when you buy more buses, you need to hire more drivers, and so your empire sort of expands all over this pretty good sized map. The game is very relaxing. I love just driving the buses, making stops, picking up passengers. When you pick up passengers, you have to dispense change. I love designing the routes and trying to make it make sense to be okay, so this route covers all of this area. Can I come up with another route that's a little bit shorter that would get people to their destinations a little bit quicker? How do I get this section to have 2 routes, one of them that goes up the street and one of them that comes down the street? It's stuff that I enjoy because I've always liked this stuff a lot, and it's cool to put that into practice and look at it and be okay, if I were in this position, how would I make these routes work in a way that makes sense to me and hopefully is effective for the people that are riding the bus? For as much as I love this game, it's truly unfortunate that it doesn't run well on consoles. It crashes to the dashboard on Xbox consistently. It doesn't run super well in the menus, and it crashes. It has an extra tendency to crash when you do special events, which national holidays, where there are more NPCs on screen. It really chugs and really struggles with that. and the patches haven't really seemed to help. There have been 2 4 GB patches to try and alleviate some of the problems in this game, but while it's maybe fixed some things on the on the road where it seems to run more consistently in the bus when you're driving the bus, the menus are atrocious and unresponsive and really annoying to use. So even trying to make up the routes is really frustrating, to where you're pulling left on the thumbstick in the map when you're making out a route, and it just doesn't move the way it should or the way you want it to. The change machine on the bus is a little unresponsive and can lead to you giving too much change, which isn't the biggest deal in the world. It's usually only 20 or 30 cents or whatever. It's in euros, so it's not a ton over, but it does ding you for it. It'll bring up a little red thing in the corner that takes away from your overall star rating, because you can get a 5-star rating if you don't do anything wrong, and that can be a little bit frustrating if you have a really good drive going and you get pinged for that. I know it's a very small team working on the game, and I'm hoping that they can get some more patches out to kind of correct some of the other issues, make it a little bit more stable so it doesn't crash out to dashboard, especially during the special events, because trying to run those and running those on longer routes is very nerve-wracking in a way that it shouldn't be. I shouldn't be thinking in the back of my head, boy, I sure hope I make it through this 35-minute part of the game that I'm trying to complete, and then the game kind of just stutters and then crashes to the dashboard, and you're totally wiped from all this progress. And that happened to me a couple of different times, which is a little frustrating. And all of those technical problems ignores the fact that I had a nightmare of a time trying to set up the steering wheel that I bought specifically to play this game. And this is a very personal critique of the game, which is why it's separated from everything else. The developer of Bus Sim put on their Twitter, there are 3 steering wheels that are specifically designed to work with this game, which means that they have a preset control setup. When you plug in your steering wheel to Bus Simulator, it'll automatically recognize them. They also said on Twitter that on the Xbox One, if you bought specific brands, including the Thrustmaster, which is what I bought, that you would be able to reprogram all of the buttons to be able to use that steering wheel on Bus Simulator. None of that worked. I banged my head against the wall for an hour and a half trying to get it to work, and to the point where it wasn't even registering that the pedals were the pedals. I tried this on a couple of other games, and the steering wheel works just fine. Everything checks out and works. It just didn't work within this game, and that was so frustrating to sit there and be I went out, I wanted to play this game with the steering wheel. I tried to save myself a little bit of money by buying a brand that they said would work, and it wasn't. The reprogramming didn't work the way they said it was going to work. That's really frustrating. Granted, totally a personal story. If you're going to play this game, you're probably just going to play with a controller, and you're probably just going to run into all the technical problems. But I did want to throw that out there. If you're watching this and you're I'm really interested in Bus Simulator, there are issues with steering wheels that are not specifically set up to run with this, even though they said, hey, there are certain brands, as long as the Xbox One or your console recognizes it as a steering wheel, you'll be able to reprogram. That didn't work, and it was really frustrating. Through all of that, I still dearly love this game. It sounds like it's hyperbolic or over-exaggeratory to say this game is a dream come true, but for me, this game is a dream come true. I love buses. It's so much fun driving the buses. I love driving the routes and designing the routes. The game does have a myriad of technical issues. It doesn't run as smooth as it probably should. It's not well optimized for console. I'm just really glad to have it on console and be able to put so much time into it and be able to love this game as much as I do. I love Bus Simulator. I'm having such a fun time playing with it, and I want to continue to play it. It's just a bummer that the technical difficulties are so consistent, and it does dampen the experience a little bit. It's still a great game for me personally. Overall, for all 3 of the items that I've talked about on the show, I'm really glad that I held off and waited to review them, because they're all going to play a factor into the rankings for the best of the quarter, which will be coming up in the next episode. So to find out where they all sit, just check out the next episode. Finally, on this week's show, we'll look forward to the new releases. Toy Story 4 and Midsommar are on Blu-ray. There was nothing in theaters. And then Yooka-Laylee, The Impossible Lair, and Concrete Genie are out on consoles this week. Thank you so much for watching Week in Review. If you like the content, scroll on down and hit that subscribe button. If you like the content enough, you could even scroll on down and leave me a comment. You can tell me what you thought of Brittany Runs a Marathon. You can tell me what you thought of Bus Simulator, or you can tell me what you thought of Untitled Goose Game. Everyone loves Goose Game. If you tell me you don't love Goose Game, you're lying, because everyone loves Goose Game. Be sure to check out the streams over on twitch.tv/ShaunosaurusRex, and check back right here every Tuesday for more Week in Review. We'll see you next week. Boy, the sun really did go down quickly, didn't it?